All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network. And I am here. I am ready on this Monday morning, bright and early, to discuss the Denver Nuggets and a situation where they just keep winning on the road, man. It's been really interesting. An interesting dichotomy for somebody like me who goes to every home game, who tries to be present at those moments. And I've seen Denver lose 4 straight home games in a row. So the feeling around Ball Arena is never awesome. But the feeling on the road has to be great. Like you keep seeing what they're doing, you keep seeing how they're playing in these situations. And I'm just impressed with the way that they handle themselves. I'm impressed with the way that Jokic and Murray have taken it upon themselves during this time to really be the best that they can be. It's 17-6 is a tremendous record, full stop. As I mentioned in the topics list, we'll get to that. We'll get to the 10 wins in a row on the road. Talk about what we've learned in the second segment. But first, a quick thank you for Friday night. For those that were able to come out on Friday to Peckish, we had a great time. It was really fun. Like, initially didn't know how it was going to go when Denver got down by 23 points against Atlanta. But just a really impressive comeback performance, and place was having fun. We were having a really grand old time. So shout out to a couple of my friends who were able to stop by as well, and just a couple of new people that I met along the way. So really cool stuff. Make sure to check out Peckish if you haven't been there before. It's in the DTC area. Got great pizza and wings. I'm not just joshing you. Like I really do genuinely believe that. So good stuff there. And then on Sunday, yesterday, Denver plays on the road in their final game of this road trip. They're coming back home and then going back on the road for a quick spot on Thursday. We'll get to that in just a bit. But they wrap up their road trip here with a perfect 3-0 record. And as I mentioned, you can't go 10-0 on the road without a perfect 3-0 road trip. And they do it against the Charlotte Hornets, who were down a bunch of guys. It wasn't like this was the strongest performance that they've ever seen, that the Nuggets have ever seen. The definitely feels like the Nuggets are getting a little bit lucky in terms of the opponents that they're facing right now at the current point. However, you play who's in front of you. You do what you can in this situation. And Denver, they won against Indiana, and Indiana had been coming back and playing pretty well. It really helps when Jamal Murray scores 50. Then against Atlanta, you get a 40-point performance against or for Jokic as Denver comes back and they shoot the absolute lights out in that game. That was incredible display of shooting. And then you get this last game against Charlotte, which to me was a very normal road win against an inferior team, where Charlotte did not have the horses to keep up with the Nuggets. There was no question about that. That was pretty clear, I would say, from the second quarter onward. Now, Denver, first quarter, they gave up some open shots. They gave up plenty of open possessions, and guys like Liam McNeely off the bench shot 4 of 5 from 3 and made things interesting. You had Conca Nipple. It was initially better than he was at the end. Brandon Miller made 4 of 10 from 3 throughout the game. Miles Bridges was driving. He certainly wasn't making any threes, but he was driving and doing some things. And you had guys like Tijane Salon, like just make a random 28-footer at the end of a shot clock. So Charlotte was hitting shots early, and it felt like Denver was going to be in a fight to the end. But they never really were after about the third quarter. They win the third quarter 30-23. They only scored 23 points in the second quarter, the Nuggets did, so they were down 1 at half. But they only held Charlotte to 24 in that quarter as well. And then on top of it, in the fourth quarter, they only hold Charlotte to 25 points. So Denver's defense, I thought, got a lot better. A surprising contributor to that was Nikola Jokic, who I thought did a really great job defensively in this past game. Not a perfect performance by any stretch of the word, and obviously it's really easy to play the kind of defense that the Nuggets are playing. Not really easy, but easier when the leading point guard for the team is Miles Bridges, or KJ Simpson and not like LaMelo Ball. LaMelo was out. Colin Sexton was out. Those guys would be a little bit more dangerous with the ball in their hands than creating for themselves and other people. Whereas the guys that Denver faced, a little bit easier to contend with. But that doesn't change the effort. It doesn't change the execution level. And the Nuggets did great things for that. Like they were able to really lock in on the defensive end in rotating behind Jokic. They made the threes that the Charlotte Hornets attempted were more contested because Jokic did a better job containing at the top. And then those guys were able to rotate really well because passes were kind of offline. You had, it wasn't perfectly hit in the shooting pocket every single time off of those passes that were being rotated. So now Denver did get a little bit lucky. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Denver got a little bit lucky with some of the shots that they did allow, but they also didn't allow that much in the paint as a result. Just looking at it, 46 in the paint, only 16 free throws made for Charlotte. So like you take that, honestly, you take that breakdown, and it just to me felt like the Nuggets were in a pretty good spot with what they were doing defensively. Only allowing 106 is very good. And then on the offensive end, you figure out some things, of course, and it looked to me like Denver did some really good things on the offensive end, led by Jamal Murray initially. Obviously, the big story in this one was Jamal Murray getting things going at the beginning of the game. He had 23 points in the first quarter alone. I think that's a record for him. I could be wrong about that. It might be 24. But Jamal Murray was unbelievable at the beginning of this game. Jokic took a back seat from an offensive perspective. It was mostly Murray, and it wasn't really anybody else. So Denver, they scored 34 points in that first quarter, but Murray was responsible for 23 of them of his own points. And I think he had an assist or two in there as well. So like he was just dominant and getting to the spots that he wanted to get to. And what that did to the Charlotte defense was what helped Denver win the rest of the game. Now, they didn't score as many points the rest of the way. I think Murray cooled off for sure. He only shot 2 of 9 from 3. He's only at 44% from 3 on the season. Like ridiculous stuff. But what it allowed was Charlotte was panic stricken every time that Murray touched the ball, every time that he was in a position running on or off the ball where he could score. And as a result, Charlotte was so over-indexed on him that it allowed Jokic to get going. It allowed other guys to get going. It allowed Denver to really free up some back cuts for other people. And it just felt like the rest of Denver's offense was a lot cleaner because of how much attention Murray took on a consistent basis. And that's great. Like Murray does his job at that point. He doesn't need to force too many things going forward at that point. And I think he had the right balance between how much he should shoot individually, how much attention he should take versus how much at that point he should get out of the way and let the rest of the offense do its work. I really liked what I saw from him. 34 points, 5 assists, 0 turnovers for Jamal Murray. He continues to play like an all-star. And then Nikola Jokic, who, again, started slow, 28 points still. 11 of 16 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3. Very efficient night. Less efficient from a outside shooting perspective for Murray. But Murray was he shot 12 of 14 on 2-pointers. Or my mistake, 12 of 16. Still 75% is that's pretty good for a point guard. But Jokic, 28 points, 9 rebounds, 11 assists. He finishes with 1 rebound short of a triple-double. He's actually been like 1 or 2 shorts in pretty much every game over the course of these past few. Like he hasn't been able to hit triple-double, and kind of interesting the way that's sort of broken down. Peyton Watson's grabbed more rebounds. You have a lot of other guys, I think, step up as rebounders. Although like Denver got out rebounded in this game, it's kind of fascinating to see. 47-35. That's weird. That's a weird breakdown. Part of that was because they didn't have some rebounds on the turnovers that they forced defensively. The Hornets also grabbed 10 offensive rebounds, so that definitely hurt. Jokic grabbed 0 offensive rebounds, so that definitely hurt in terms of his own individual number. But I don't know. Like it just felt like this was a game where Jokic was able to ease into it. He didn't have to do anything too terribly difficult early. And as a result, he was able to get into the flow. He missed an early three in the second quarter. Next possession down, or next couple of possessions down, hit a three at the top of the key, and then went 4 of 8 overall on the game. And this is the right balance, I think, that the Nuggets need to be striking. Like, this is Jokic and Murray continuing to do their stuff, and it's been a different kind of version of this every single time. In the Indiana game, Murray goes for 50 points. I don't remember what Jokic finished with in that game, but it wasn't 50. No, actually, Murray went for 52. And Jokic augmented that with his own scoring and then his own passing. I think he had 13 assists in that game, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was like 24, 8, and 13, I think was the number. And then in the Atlanta game, Murray shot pretty well, but not as well as Jokic. Or actually, no, he shot more efficiently than Jokic, but Jokic got the volume. Like, he really struggled in the first quarter, but then really turned it on in the second quarter, went 13 of 26, had 40 points overall. Murray augmented that with his own scoring and passing. I think he had 12 assists in that game. So kind of an interesting balance that you're seeing here, where when one of these guys goes off, the other's still like really facilitating well, passing well to everybody, not just that person, but then getting other people involved. And then in this game, you see Murray go for 34 points, 5 assists. Jokic goes for 11 assists and augments what Murray is doing with passing of his own. And so the way that those guys are playing, they're striking the balance right now that I think is really, really important. Denver isn't going to be perfect from an offensive perspective, especially with what's going on for Denver. With everything, like with the injury perspective, and then just going out on the road, you're not going to expect to get perfect performances from Peyton Watson every night and perfect performances from Spencer Jones and things like that. Like, you have to account for the fact that those guys aren't going to be perfect the entire time. So I think that what we're seeing here from Jokic and Murray is just taking on the responsibility that they need to in order for Denver to win on a consistent basis. And we've seen Jokic do that often, right? We've seen, like, this is, I remember 2022, where you have Murray and Porter go down. Jokic, just the entire time, it felt like he was fighting through a brick wall, trying to score, trying to set up the rest of the team. And they won 46 games out of pure force of will from Jokic. I think that's what the Nuggets have done in this case, is that Jokic doesn't have to do it alone. Like, how cool is that? That you're now in this position where Murray's been so not inconsistent throughout. He has been relatively inconsistent throughout his career. You see the points where the highs are high, but in terms of him stepping up for an every night basis, it's been so rare to see Jamal have a bad game lately. And that's cool. Like, that's what you want to see when you're paying a guy like what the Nuggets are paying him. And you want to make sure that Jokic isn't burning out. One of the big reasons why Jokic isn't burning out yet is because Jamal Murray is stepping up on a consistent basis and being able to take some of those shots, the extra possessions. It means what Jokic is doing, especially in this last Charlotte game. It wasn't hard for him at all. Like, it might be difficult for some other guys, but what Jokic had to do was not difficult for him. And so you balance those two out, and they really are, like, Swipe on Locked On likes to call them water and fire. Like, Jokic is water. He adapts to the situation. He's cool. He's calm. He's collected. He does everything. He's nourished. Like, it just is everything that you need from somebody to kind of set the baseline example. Murray is fire, where he can burn the opposing team to an absolute crisp. But he's developing some of those water tendencies as well, adapting to different situations, finding a way to play a good game, and just overall making it a better experience for everybody else around him, because they know what to expect. Like, so often in the NBA, all you want is consistency. All you want is to know what your team is going to do on a consistent basis. With Jokic, that makes it easy. Like, the way that he does it is going to be a little bit different every time because he's so adaptable. but you know he's going to be productive. You know he's going to make the right play. And with Murray, he's making the right play too. And the right play a lot of the time is for him to call his own number right now. And that's been tremendous. So really liked what I've seen from those two guys. I think what they're doing is great for Denver. They're setting the table for everything else. And while there is a little bit of concern for me that this is just the Jokic Murray show right now, rather than other guys stepping up consistently, like Cam Johnson in this game had 8 points on 7 shots. He was 2 of 7. That's just, it's not really good enough. He's getting out of the way of what the Nuggets are trying to do and what Murray's trying to do, what Jokic was trying to do, but it can't just be them doing this for an entire season. Now, they're stepping up because Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon are out, but I do think that as the year goes on, they're going to need some breaks. Like Murray's barely sat throughout the entire year, and that's rare. Like he's played 22 out of 23 games, and I think if you're a Nuggets fan, you would expect him to play, okay, probably 19 at this point, 20 rather than 22. Jokic, I think, has played all 23, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, these guys are carrying a burden. And so at some point, Denver's going to need to rest them. At some point, they're going to need to do the right thing and just allow others the opportunity to step up. But for what they're doing right now, for what Jokic and Murray are doing at this point, it's been excellent. I've really enjoyed what I've seen from them and think that they are, like, at a different level. Like, Jokic is, of course, best player in the world, very capable. Whether he's going to win MVP or not, I don't know. But what Murray has done has completely transformed what the Nuggets have needed to do at the start of this season. All-star level. And having somebody that can also rise to that occasion next to Jokic makes it so much easier for Jokic to do his thing on a consistent basis. So good stuff from Jokic and Murray. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the other contributors throughout that game, as well as discuss Denver being 17-6, 10 road wins in a row. What does it mean? Where are the Nuggets at? What have we learned about the Denver Nuggets? We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. This podcast is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone feel vulnerable. Data brokers, they profit off of your data. It's a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. Have you ever been the victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/hit and use promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and enter code HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, folks. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. A couple questions here that popped in from the last segment. Nugget LePup asks, how much do those guys contribute to the problems of the defensive end with Jokic and Murray? I would say that they're the two worst defenders in Denver starting lineup for sure. But Murray, I mean, you saw at the end of the Atlanta game, he made a huge defensive play and can step up in like later in the game. I'll say early in games, Murray is extremely liable to give up a bucket here or there. He raises his hand oftentimes because he makes a defensive mistake. And with Jokic, we know the deal, right? Like he has to save his energy throughout a game. He has to save his energy throughout the season. So he's going to make some business decisions every now and then too. But yeah, like if Denver's 18th in defensive rating, which I think they currently are right now in cleaning the glass, they're first by a mile in offensive rating, which matters more than the 18th in defensive rating personally. But yeah, between those two guys, they definitely contribute. Are they the entire reason why Denver's outside of the top 10? No, like there's some other reasons for that too. The non-Jokic minutes, the bench minutes have been relatively bad defensively of late. And like that's definitely a concern, I would say. But obviously, like with the starting group, Jokic and Murray are the two target points right now. Peyton Watson, Spencer Jones, Cam Johnson, they've done a really good job of stepping up defensively. But it's when you kind of like mix things up and are running on a consistent basis that, yeah, it's going to cause some issues. So I do think that they contribute to the problems for sure. I'm not going to run away from that. But Snowwolf asks, or he says, on the radio, they said Jamal has a good chance to make the All-Star team this year because a couple of the other foreign players are hurt. Yes, Franz Wagner just went down with an injury yesterday. We have not heard the diagnosis of what that's going to be, but he has sustained an injury. Wemby will be coming back. He's getting in. I think if you're going like strictly international players, you've got Jokic, Shea counts, Canadian, Luka, Wemby, Alperen Şengün definitely getting in. I'm of course forgetting names. Murray's in that next group of international players that could potentially get into the game. Josh Giddey is one of them who's been named on a consistent basis. But if you want to talk about like, is your defense hurting the team? Josh Giddey's defense is hurting that team. He has been horrible defensively throughout this entire year and is the major target for opposing Chicago Bulls off our teams. I think that if teams are going to be like, if coaches are going to reward winning, then what the Nuggets have done at 17-6 in the Western Conference with the injuries that they have had, it should be accounted for. Personally, that's how I feel. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But Murray, I do think, has completely earned the right to represent the international squad for the All-Star game. And it'll be interesting to see whether he gets in or not. I'm sure that there are a couple of other guys that I am missing, like Lauri Markkanen is another one that has a pretty interesting case. But while Murray is shooting with 25 points, 6.8 assists, 4.5 rebounds, 50, 45, 90 splits for his own personal production, Lauri Markkanen is at 27.6 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2 assists, but his shooting splits are a little bit worse at 47.2, 36, and 90.7. And he's on the Utah Jazz, who have really fallen off. So it'll be interesting to see between those two, like who, I don't know if they have to pick between those two, but if that's where the decision comes down to, you would hope that coaches would default to the winning player, to the player that's on the team that's winning and making winning plays on a consistent basis. And the Jazz are just not that right now. So we'll see. Okay. Like I said at the top, 17-6 is a tremendous record, full stop. There is no question about what the Nuggets have accomplished from that perspective. I do think that there's a lot of questions about some of the teams that they've lost to, where you go through the record and you think, okay, you lost to the Warriors on opening night. That's justifiable. It's reasonable. Go on the road against the Blazers. Blazers aren't very good. You probably should have won that game, is what it is. Then they lost to Chicago, I believe. I think that was the next loss that they had. They lost to San Antonio, they lost to Dallas, and they lost to somebody else. Some of you guys are going to have to remind me on who, but it wasn't the best loss by any stretch of the word. I do think that those losses in general aren't great. Like you're not going to sit here and say, "Oh my gosh, you lost to OKC," but you were in the game and you lost by 5 points. Like it could have been worse. Kings. Mad Dog says Kings. Yeah, like not great. That, to me, that one was entirely Russell Westbrook pilled, and it was entirely Denver being on the second night of a back-to-back. Excuse me. Denver being on the second night of a back-to-back in that situation, not taking the Kings seriously because they played them for the third time. Now, newsflash, they got to play them for a fourth time. So the hope is that Denver does not let go of the rope against the Kings this time around. I don't think that they will. I think that they'll be in a situation now where they'll be in a situation now where they've already lost to the Kings. If you do it again, then you're literally hurting yourself way more than you need to. But yeah, Denver can justify going 3-1 against the Kings as opposed to 4-0. Like it'll be okay. But you add some of those up together and you think, okay, like in those situations, you lost to Ryan Nembhard and the Dallas Mavericks. That was probably a bad loss. You lost to San Antonio without Victor Wembanyama. That was probably a bad loss. And it was that all the losses came at home. Like that definitely changes the calculus a little bit. Usually in those situations, you want to protect your home floor. I think if I'm thinking about this from the Nuggets perspective and what they probably wanted to do, I'm going to guess that they probably wanted to tie the franchise record for wins at home. Like at the beginning of the season, there was 38-3 was the franchise record. They can't do that anymore. Obviously, they've lost more than that at home at this point. And so wouldn't be a surprise if they get very frustrated about that. But they've augmented it with amazing play on the road. And it's just something you wouldn't expect from this team, especially with the altitude at your back. Obviously, everybody and their mother likes to, especially outside of Denver, likes to complain about the altitude and how much of a home court advantage it is. It is if you use it to your advantage. And if Denver was running on a consistent basis, if they were getting back in transition, if they were a more physical defensive team trying to really bother you, then maybe it would. Maybe it would be a major advantage. But the way that Denver uses it from their style of play, it's not that crazy. Like Denver does run and they will get some transition play, especially the Jokic hit-ahead passes are definitely a big deal. But it's more like death by 1,000 cuts at home as opposed to like haymakers left and right. That's not how it is. That's not how Denver plays. So I'm not really surprised that it's kind of manifested that way at home for Denver. I'm also really not surprised that Denver's been good on the road. It's not something I predicted at the beginning of the year, to be clear, but it is something that makes sense. It's the way that they are showing up and the way that they are responding in these situations. Like I thought that they would be 16-7 at this point through 23 games. I did not expect them to win as many games on the road and as few games at home. But the way that they did is not really what matters. It's that they got the results that they were looking for and even outperformed in some ways what they were looking for. Like how many times have you heard about a team winning 10 road games in a row? That is ridiculous. And like it's just not something that really happens. Let's go through the results. Let's talk about the games that Denver did win as part of this experience on the road. The last road game that they lost, so they lost their first two of their first three road games. It was at Golden State, they lost in overtime. Then they won at Minnesota. Then they lost in that NBA Cup game at Portland. Since then, they are 10-0 on the road. They've won at Sacramento. They won at the Clippers on a back-to-back. That one I thought that they would lose, obviously, but I don't think anybody really expected the Clippers to collapse to this degree. Then they won at Minnesota again. Minnesota was on the second night of a back-to-back for that one. However, like they had their guys and Denver was out. Like they had, I think Christian Brown and Cam Johnson were out at that point. Then Denver goes on the road and wins at New Orleans. And then they win at Houston in that really important NBA Cup game that ultimately didn't matter that much from a NBA Cup standpoint, but it's really big for Denver from a tiebreaker standpoint. Then they win at Memphis in what I'd call another very workman-like victory, like what they had against Charlotte. Then they go at Phoenix and dominate Phoenix on second night of back-to-back for both teams. Denver was the one that really got it going, and they shot the lights out in that game after losing the way that they did against San Antonio. And then they go on this 3-game road trip, and at Indiana, they win. At Atlanta, they come back and win after being down 23. And then at Charlotte, they win, basically taking control in the second half and never looking back. So the way that they've done this with all of those different games, I'm not going to sit here and say that they've played the strongest competition. Houston's great. Minnesota's good. I do think that those teams matter. And like the Phoenix game matters, but some of those times they were in compromised positions. And then other times, like Atlanta probably should have won that game against Denver. Houston they shouldn't have won that game. I think the other games, like outside of Atlanta, Denver won every game they were supposed to win. Like they came in, they played well, they set the tone and did a great job. I do think that the Houston game was one that they stole at least a little bit, but that's because they know how to play, they know how to do it, and the way that they managed that one was really interesting. They play Houston another couple of times as well over the course of these couple of weeks. On Thursday, they go to Sacramento, but then Denver comes back home and they play Houston at home on Monday, so in a week from now. Then another game on Thursday, then another game on Saturday of next week, and then another game Monday of the week after. So I think that like 2 games against Houston will be fun, will be interesting. I'm curious to see how Denver handles it. But because Denver's game, like the games are so spread out, this next game against Sacramento, it doesn't happen until Thursday. They've got 3 days off. Then they've got another 3 days off before they play Houston. Then they've got another 2 days off before they play Orlando. Then a day off before they play Houston again. Then a day off before they play Utah. Like they slowly kind of get back into that rhythm after that. But this stretch it's why I wanted to kind of do this at this stage, because this is going to be this is where Denver kind of recovers at least a little bit. It's good timing for the Christian Braun and Aaron Gordon injuries because they'll have extra time to heal because Denver's not playing 7 or 8 games during that stretch. They're playing 4. And like the hope is that they just continue to go about things the right way and can recover at home at least a little bit. So they'll play that road game and then they'll play 4 home games in a row. And I'm curious to see how they respond to it, what they're able to do, and what it's going to look like from that perspective. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. I think Denver has done everything that you would want them to do. Maybe the details are a little bit shaky. Maybe the 18th in cleaning the 18th in defensive rating on cleaning the glass, it's a little bit low for what you would want. It's a little bit low for what you'd expect. So it's low for what I would want too. But with Denver being this good offensively, I'm not sure I need them to be a great defensive team right now. What they showed through the first 12 games from a defensive standpoint was good enough for me, at least for a while. When Aaron Gordon and Christian Braun come back, you can start having those conversations again about what to do. But I do think that Denver at this point, they've done everything that you would ask from a record standpoint. They're on pace for 60, 61 wins. And I'm just like, I think Nuggets fans should be thrilled. They should be thrilled about how this season has gone, despite the fact that there has been some adversity. There has been some things that they've needed to improve upon. Snow Wolf asks in the comments, did you see the Marvin Mims punt return yesterday? That was awesome. I did. Wasn't able to watch the full Broncos game. I figured I wasn't going to have to watch a barn burner against the Raiders, but I mean, they keep winning too. They've won, what is this, 10 in a row or whatever for the Broncos? Like they've been ridiculous. So good stuff there, and they just keep finding ways to win. It kind of reminds me of Philly last year, where it wasn't perfect the entire time, but they just kept finding ways to win. And you look up at the Super Bowl and they've won 15 in a row or whatever it was. So hopefully Denver can continue that trend. We'll see. Okay. NBA Finals odds have not shifted for Denver. According to FanDuel, OKC is up to plus 130. Like they are ridiculous. You're nearly at even money for OKC to get to the NBA Finals because they've started the year the way that they have. Denver's still at plus 700 to win the finals. My mistake. No, this is not just to get to the finals. This is to win the NBA Finals. OKC is nearly even money at plus 130. Denver's the only other team that's got 3-digit odds. Plus 700 for Denver, plus 1,000 for Houston, plus 1,100 for New York. plus 1,300 for Cleveland. I think what we are seeing, and like one of the reasons why Denver is as low as they are in comparison to OKC is because of the defense. It's because of the gap there. And I think the expected gap between those two teams. I have seen from Denver that, and from the public perception of Denver, it really does feel like they are the only hope against OKC. Everybody at this point thinks that if OKC isn't going to win, it's probably because the Nuggets did something. I don't think people really think Houston's going to do it. Now, that's maybe I'm ignoring Houston fans and their sentiments. Maybe there's some folks around the NBA that have been really impressed with Houston. I just tend to think that when OKC gets down to it, they're going to be able to defeat Houston. They're going to probably do so in about 5 or 6 games. I don't think that's going to be a 7-game series or one that Houston's actually going to be capable of winning. And then in the Eastern Conference, like Cleveland, New York, it's like Orlando is starting to make some moves, but again, they just had the Franz Wagner injury, so immediately things are starting to go sideways again for Orlando. Who else is at the top of the East? Boston's at the top of the East. I don't think anybody really fully expects them to be like dominant at the end. Detroit's 19-5. Maybe they're a team that needs to be taken seriously, but do you honestly think that Detroit, when faced with OKC, is going to be able to do the things that they're doing right now? Like that feels like West versus East kind of situation. It does not feel like they're going to be a team that can take down OKC in the finals. With that in mind, I do think that Denver's really the only team that can do it. They have the capacity, and they had the capacity at the beginning of the year. I'm a little bit worried from a ceiling defensive perspective. Like it does feel to me like Bruce Brown, for example, is one of the only guys that can really help on the defensive end, like on a consistent basis, but his offense has not been good enough to fully justify him being out there the entire time. You could say something similar for Peyton Watson, although he has taken steps forward and I think could be a guy that really can contribute on that end and be a guy that guards Shea on a consistent basis. Although I got to be honest, like I don't expect Peyton to be able to really stop Shea or slow down Shea in some of those ways. I don't really expect Christian to be able to do it either. It's like expecting Jokic to be slowed down. I don't really think that that's going to happen unless you sell the farm, unless you do everything. So we'll see what happens and what Denver can do. Tell me down in the comments below, do you think that Denver needs one more guy to compete with OKC? Or do they have enough? Do they have enough pieces right now? I think it's a fair question. It's also still early. Like where there's still 59 games left to go in the regular season before we really start having these discussions. However, I think that with the trade deadline where it is, with Denver's financial and cap and pick situation the way that it is, I do not think that it's an unfair question. Like, if you need another guy, can you get them? Like, is that a reasonable question? Do you just convert Spencer Jones, who's been really good for Denver, but also still relatively inexperienced and still somebody who is figuring out life in the NBA? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but what I do know is that Denver was already at the level that they were pushing OKC last year. I think they will push OKC again this year if they face them. The question is whether they have enough to get it over the finish line with the way that OKC can sell out and play incredible defense and have so many different guys that can really go at you on a consistent basis. I don't know. But the record that Denver's put together, the offense that Denver's put together, I think that they've established some baselines that they've needed to do. Murray's playing at a crazy level. I think he can continue to be better than he was in last year's OKC series. And that's a question mark, though. Who knows? And I think that Jokic, especially if he's not carrying the burden on a consistent basis, can be better in an OK series than he was last year. We'll see what happens. But Denver's got the baseline. I think that they have plenty of reasons to believe. But we'll learn. We'll continue to understand. We'll continue to try to figure out. I'm very curious to see how it goes. Okay, everybody, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate the love and support on the podcast. As always, folks, I will be back on. We're trying to figure out some of the schedule stuff. I think probably back tomorrow, but we will see. There's still some things trying to figure out because Denver's only got one game this week, so I might try to adjust things at least a little bit. Everybody have a great week. Be good. I will talk to you guys very soon.